Talktainmentradio.com.
We give you a reason to come.
The world's greatest radio.
We give you a reason to stay.
Radio the way it should be heard.
You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and not necessarily those of Talktainmentradio.com, 3MR Production, its ownership, management, or staff.
We've got the power.
This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
This is the compensatory concept. I'm Brother Kahari, sitting in every week, every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, of course, with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., the author of 2 definitive works on racism. I think probably the most important thing that Mr. Fuller has done in his works is that Mr. Fuller has set the stage for how you define. He was one of the first persons to look at this thing and call it a global system. And that in itself changed the whole way people were looking at this. I think historically people were thinking it was isolated systems. You go over in Europe, they treated you different in Europe. You go over in certain places. All that, I even was listening to some pieces of Malcolm and some of the people who talked about how when Malcolm X went to, and by the way, we did a show on Conversating AM acknowledging that this was the 48th anniversary. He died February the 21st, and we did a show on that day. But acknowledging how when he went over there, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had told him that white people didn't go to Mecca, and when he saw them, how his feelings were, and some of the confusion that resulted from that, and other black people who have looked all over the world trying to figure this thing out. Very few black people understood the notion that racism was a global system. And this changed the whole way of thinking about it. And I attribute much of that to the works of Mr. Neely Fuller in his classic works. And Mr. Fuller, how are you, sir?
I'm still learning.
Mr. Fuller, let's talk about how we can get the name of your 2 works and how we can get them, because I understand there's been a change in how you can get them now. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
Yes, well, the fastest way to get the books, the basic book and the word guide that came out in 2010, that's an addition to the basic book. You can just go to your computer and punch up the words producejustice.com. Now, that's a site that I'm using temporarily as a simple way to just get the book, because the focus is always on the books. And the title of the book is the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. And you will see that on your screen, and how to order the books. There'll be an order form. But the subtitle of the book is more explicit, and that's a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism. And by racism, I mean the system of white supremacy. Mm-hmm. That is the global system. Now, why is that important to the average individual in the world, particularly an individual who is classified as non-white? Because all people are classified by the white supremacists as either being white or non-white. You're either one or the other. That's very important to them, otherwise they could not operate a system of racism. So the entire world is based on the system of racism. It's not based on anything else other than that. What people do each and every day is going to be determined by a color definition. That definition defined by the people who believe in, I'm not talking about all white people, but the white people who have decided that they believe in a system of racism for running the business of the world. They have called this the system of white supremacy, even though it's not called that on a day-to-day basis on the lips of the average person. It comes in the guise of everything from communism to capitalism to different religious designations. In any area of activity, they'll have some other label on it. The general labels being the things that people are commonly associated with, and that is, I call it the 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. But what the white supremacists have done, that's those white people who believe in dominating and mistreating people based on color, which is what racism is. What they decided is that all of the people on the planet who are classified as non-white will be dominated and mistreated in all of these areas of activity, wherever they happen to be, 24/7. That is the goal. And the goal in order to accomplish what? Of the system of white supremacy. What is that goal? The goal is to have fun and to gain glory and to gain and maintain material benefits. That's the goal of the system of white supremacy. In order, and you say the first thing, glorifying it for what? Glorifying it for the simple reason that you glorify it. They have already accomplished their goal. They're not seeking to establish anything. They already have it. And that goal is just to enjoy what they already have, to glorify it. Glorify what? Glorify mistreating people based on color.
Okay.
That's the basis for it.
Okay, Mr. Fuller, we appreciate that. Mr. Fuller, we're going to be joined this morning in our show by the young lady by the name of Rosalind Dobbins. She has a book out that I found quite interesting. I've heard about it. It's called Pieces of a Puzzle. And it's a book on sex and race, and it covers the eighth. It deals with, Mr. Fuller, the 8th area of activity, sex, which is a very, very powerful element. And in her book, she deals with white men's secret affairs with black women. Let's bring her in. Rosalind Dobbins, how are you?
Sorry, yes, it's Renethia Tate.
I'm sorry, it's what now?
Renethia Tate.
Okay, I'm sorry. I've got the wrong. I apologize for that. Apparently, I had Rosalind Dobbins up here, but your name is Renethia Tate. I apologize for that. I owe you an apology. And you've written a book called Pieces of a Puzzle. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in writing this book, it covers the 8th area of sex. Why did you write this book? And what? And it's kind of interesting. You're saying it deals with white men's secret affairs with black women. What do you mean?
Well, it's still secret. As a matter of fact, no one is talking about the secret affairs that white men have with black women. No one is still talking about that, other than me, myself. I'm talking about it, and I composed the book. As a matter of fact, I was in college, and I was interested in the race problem, and so I was searching and researching, and then I ran up on Mr. Fuller, who asked me a question, and the question was, have I ever been with a white man? And at that time, I just kind of, when he asked me the question, I hung up the phone on him. And then I called him back. And then I said, yes, I did. And he hurt me. And that's all he said to me. And then we took it from there. And from there, I got a chance to get a hold of the code, his book. And I was able to see that this was a secret. So he put me on the road of uncovering why is it that black females will not talk about this subject matter.
Now, Renethia, first of all, is it true? Is it true what has been stated that black women will tell you about the affairs they have with black men, but they won't talk about the secret affairs they have with white men? Is that true?
Yes, and it's still true. No one is talking about that subject but me. But yes, that is true.
Okay, well
And
let's kind of get into it. Tell me what you've discovered as you look at the secret affairs with black women. How is this implemented?
How is it implemented?
Yeah, how is it done?
Well, basically, it's just a secret. You know, no one talks about it. And I had to. What the book is about. I went out and got about 15 black women to talk about. It was the movie The Bodyguard. The Bodyguard
right.
movie was on
With Whitney
and
Houston.
I went out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with Whitney. Yes, and I went out and I got a bunch of people to talk to me about it, and they wasn't really willing to talk to me unless I told them my story. Okay, so once I told them my story, I was able to get them to talk. Mm-hmm. So I interviewed 15 black women, and I got a chance to talk to them about, the secret affairs and stuff. And it was very therapeutic for them to talk to me about it. It was very therapeutic. Also in the book is 13 white men. Now that happened by accident. Okay, they just got into my research. What I had done was I had put an ad out at that time to talk to black males about the race problem. And then when I opened up my I guess it was something like a mailbox. When I opened up the mailbox, all these white men was in the mailbox wanting to talk to me. So I said, or wanted to get to know me. So I started the process of interviewing them.
Let me ask you this question. If you had to guess a percentage, and I know maybe I'm putting you on the spot here, but I want to get an idea of how widespread this is. What percentage of black women would you say are involved with secret affairs with white males?
Well, they normally go for the young people right now. It's always the young people who are the most ignorant. Okay? So if this subject, in other words, enough of them to keep white supremacy going. So that's a large number. I can't give you a percentage, but it's enough of them to keep them going. And in the book, I interviewed a lot of the females that I interviewed were young.
Where did these secret affairs begin? Is it on the job? Is it at a club? How do these pickups or these relationships or these interactions start? Where do they start from?
They start exactly where you named. It could be the job. It could be out at a club. Most anywhere, My incident happened at a club.
Okay, tell me about it.
Well, I was at a club in Canada. And then I went home, and then it was a black male involved too. But they were from England. And I got involved, and I went home with one. But I was very young. I was about 24. I didn't know no better, and so I was able to put my story as in the book first. So my story is the first story that you run into. I opened the book up with my story.
So what message do you want to convey with this book, Pieces of the Puzzle?
Well, we get a chance to, since there's 15 black females in the book, I couldn't interview the whole population of black women. So since there are 15 in the book, we get a chance. Those 15 are a representative sample. So most likely when other females pick up the book who I didn't interview, they get a chance to see themselves. Because these are a wide range of stories, which we find out that some white men are not even having sex with black females. They may be doing other things, so we got a wide range of different stories.
Wait a minute, hold up for a minute. When you say doing other things, what, for example?
Well, they could be into a lot of white men, based on my research, was into a lot of oral sex with black females, not necessarily penetrating them, but just into a lot of oral sex, which can have a devastating effect on the mind also.
Why?
How you said why?
Why? Yes, why does it have a devastating effect?
Well, it depends depends on how it's done. If they are licking and constantly licking and not penetrating the female, okay, then she becomes confused, because what happens is the vagina get moist and get ready for the penis. But what happens is he don't give her the penis. Okay? So then that goes into confusion. And then they don't necessarily know what to do. And a lot of stuff, then they get into that lesbian. Because they've been licked on and they don't necessarily know they're not getting the penis because he's not giving them the penis. So that confuses a person, and they don't know necessarily what way to go.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying?
That's deep. That is very deep.
Yeah, if you're licking, they don't know what to do. You know, if you're not giving them the penis, they get confused.
So what it is that they're not getting the thing that makes the male male. They're getting the thing that could make the male female or male. That's what you're saying. And that sets up that confusion?
That sets up that confusion.
And plus the fact that they're white, that is the greatest confusion. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Mr. Fuller, let me bring in Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, you have long said, I remember years ago, I first met Mr. Fuller, I think around 1975. I believe that's when it was. Mr. Fuller came to Dayton, and I remember we brought him into Dayton to do a talk, and I remember even then, Mr. Fuller talked about these secret affairs. I remember, and that's what struck me about some of his talks. So Mr. Fuller has been observing this for years. Mr. Fuller, let me get your thoughts on this.
Well, to capsulize all of it, when it comes to the area of sex, all that the white supremacists ever want to do with non-white people is insult them. That's if you just want one straight line, it's all about insulting. That's what it's all about. I don't care what context you put it in, it's all about insulting. If it's a white supremacist, if he's dealing with the First Lady, Miss Michelle Obama, it's all about, I'm going to see how I can insult this woman and have her smile about it. See, this is what it's all about. It's about just a bag of tricks, but if you just want to put it in a capsule, if you just want to have one thing in your mind, when it comes to the area of sex, the eighth area of activity in the system of white supremacy, when the white supremacists interact with non-white people, it's all about how can I debase and insult this person in the area of sex and do it in a way that it looks like I'm complimenting them. That's the one single way that you can always remember it.
Now
here they come. They're getting ready to insult me. Now, how they're going to go about doing it? It's going to wind up being an insult. They don't do anything other than insult. That's the only reason they're coming. They're just trying to be insulting and debasing and confusing, and when they walk away, they're grinning to themselves of how they pulled it off. And the black person is left addled, confused, don't know which way to go, don't know what to think about what just happened. That's the way you're supposed to leave, because the whole thing is not really about sex. It's about insulting. It's about debasing. It's about confusing. It's about control. It's about we got over on them again, and they're so dumb they don't even know what we're doing.
Mr. Fuller, you at one time, you had this maximum, I believe, that under the conditions of white supremacy, there should be no sex between white males and black females. Does that still hold true from a codified standpoint, Mr. Fuller?
Even in this modern day and time, absolutely yes, because it's still all about insulting and debasing and confusing. This is the objective for it. They don't have any other objective. They're not trying to do anything constructive. These are not constructive interactions. They don't even have in mind anything in the future as being constructive, not one thing. It's all about confusing and debasing, and if you just want to use one capsulized word, insulting. In other words, and that includes black males with the white female in the system of white supremacy. Now, I want to say this to make this very clear. If there were no system of white supremacy, then it would just be, you might say, in a frivolous way, boy meets girl. That's what it would amount to. It wouldn't have any significance at all if we weren't in a system of white supremacy. But in a system of white supremacy, it's always the white partner. I don't care how emotionally they may be involved in it or how it looks on the surface. It's the same as child molestation. It's the same as the warden of a prison taking advantage of the prisoner of war, because all non-white people are prisoners of war in the system of white supremacy. So when the warden goes into the cell and has sexual intercourse with the prisoner and then comes out of the cell and locks the cell door, this prisoner has been taken advantage of. That's not an even-steven relationship, and it shouldn't be looked at that way. And as long as you have the system of white supremacy in place, any so-called sexual intercourse or, most recently, gayism or that type of confusion is something that's detrimental to the non-white partner. I don't care how you shake it up and pour it.
Okay. Wow. Woo! We've got a lot more to cover. Renita Tate is here. She has her book, Pieces for a Puzzle. And, of course, Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. is here. And I'm waiting on you to join us. This is the compensatory concept. I'm Brother Kahari, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Stay right there.
Hi, I'm Joan London, and if you're worried about your parent or a loved one living alone like I was, and you want reliable senior care information, then call A Place for Mom, the nation's largest senior living referral service. You'll get free information on assisted living, Alzheimer's care, nursing homes, even important financial information.
They had obviously researched every place, not just given me names.
Really? Yeah.
They found me a place for what she could afford, and it was magnificent.
We're now very confident that she's safe, and they just helped every step of the way, and I can't thank them enough.
So if you're struggling to find reliable senior living information, call A Place for Mom. This is a free service, and you can trust them to help you.
If you're struggling to find reliable senior living information for your mom or dad, then call or go online to get the free help you need during this turbulent time. Call now, 800-371-5898, 800-371-5898.
TalkTainmentRadio.com.
The women we love, the women who love us, they are dying. Heart disease is our #1 killer, taking more lives than all forms of cancer combined. But we have the power to save those lives, our lives, because the greatest force for women is women. It's time to stand together, to fight harder, to shout louder. It's time to go red for women.
More people are dealing with depression, stress, and anxiety than ever before. Finances increase stress in stable relationships. Sometimes it's hard to go to work. Need a fresh start? Call 614-833-2684. Contact Noreen Palmer at Affirmative Counseling Associates for an appointment today. Call 614-833-2684. Or check out my profile at psychologytoday.com/Noreen Palmer. Knock out depression and stress starting today. Call 614-833-2684.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
Here at the GED Pep Talk Center, we've got a range of pep talkers standing by. Call 1-877-38-YOUR-GED or visit yourged.org and find free classes in your area. GED is a registered trademark of the American Council on Education. Brought to you by Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
We've got the power.
Justice is better than racism.
This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on talktainmentradio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard. I'm Brother Kahari, sitting in every week at the same time at 10 a.m. with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. as we go over constantly. We take a look at many of the things that Mr. Fuller has been credited by many, and certainly by me and others, with being the originator of the whole notion of looking at racism from a whole different perspective. I think people just saw it as individual acts and things like that. But Mr. Fuller was the first to say, no, this is a global system. And he used that word system, which opened a lot of eyes. People began to say, whoa, wait a minute. And the study was on from there. Now, joining us in this edition of the compensatory concept, we have a special guest, Renita Tate. Did I get that right?
Close, Renithia.
Is it Renithia?
Yes, Renithia.
I'm sorry, it's Renithia. I'm sorry, let me get that right. Renithia Tate, and she is the author of a book, Pieces of a Puzzle, the one thing black females will not talk about. And her book is very, very interesting. It deals with white men's secret affairs with black women. Now, Mr. Fuller has often talked about this under the 8th area of activity known as sex. And Ms. Tate, you said something, really said many things that struck me pretty strongly. This notion of confusion, I want to kind of pioneer and drill back into that a little bit more. When you say that, are you saying that when black women have affairs, secret affairs, or even overt affairs with white males, it produces confusion within them? And if so, what do you mean by the nature of this confusion? What is the nature of this confusion?
Well, okay, it's kind of like what Mr. Fuller said. Really, they're different acts that they get involved with just to confuse you. These acts they might not be classified as sexual acts. They might be, we just don't know what they classified as, just something to cause a lot of mental abuse. So this stuff is mental abuse when sex is connected to the mind. So if you have somebody doing something nasty, that has a mental effect on you. Like, in other words, I hate to get so graphic, but, the act of the golden shower. And I know you may have heard of that.
Yes, that room when somebody, when you urinate on a person, yes.
Yeah, that's nothing. That is something to tear you up psychologically, and you are not going to talk about that act with anybody.
Wait a minute. Let's stop right there. You said tears you up psychologically. What do you mean? Explain to me what you mean when you say it tears you up psychologically.
Well, in other words, you become embarrassed and feeling guilty. Why should I have done it? Why I shouldn't have done it? Confused. I think that is sex. You might think it is sex when you become confused. Or that's part of sex when it's really not. It's an act that causes so much embarrassment that you just don't talk about it.
Because you feel like somebody expropriated their waste on you, that made you feel also like you were waste. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. It's so embarrassing that you just don't talk to nobody about it.
Let's talk about this word you've used, embarrassing. What do you mean when you say embarrassing? Break that down a little bit more for me.
Well, it's just something that you don't want to talk to nobody about. You just keep it to yourself. And in my case, now, it's a lot of different things happening in that bedroom. I had sexual intercourse, but it was very, very rough. And what it did to me was I buried the experience in my brain.
You buried it?
That's what we be doing. The reason why it's the one thing we won't talk about is because the experience is buried. And then I'm asking them, as the girls told me when I interviewed them, you asking me to relive that. We don't want to relive that experience.
Why?
Because, like I said, it was, first of all, in my case, the mental abuse, I had a lot of mental abuse. I had it buried in my mind. And some females had it buried in their minds, too, depending on what took place in that bedroom.
Now, that's very interesting. When you bury something in your mind, does that mean that it goes away, that it's dead? Or what does that mean when you bury, I guess that means submerge something in your mind, put it way down, but it doesn't go anywhere. It's still there. Am I correct?
Yes, and it does resurface. It will resurface. See, mine's resurfaced when Mr. Fuller said, "Have you ever had sex with a white man?" See, that's when mine's resurfaced, and when it resurfaced, I hung up on him. Okay, and then I called him back, okay, and then I went on and told him what happened, a little bit, and he just said, "I thought so."
Let me ask, did you feel violated? Did you feel,
I felt like, at that point in time, I felt like he was looking up under my dress.
That who was looking up under your dress?
Mr. Fuller.
Okay, no, I'm not talking, I'm talking about when you had sex with the white male, did you feel violated?
No, not at that time. It was after I left because a friend was with me, and she asked me, "How was it?" And I just said it wasn't about nothing. And then I put it in the back of my mind.
Interesting.
At that point.
Wow.
This is why it's the one thing black females will not talk about, because it's so submerged in the back of our mind.
Now, how does it affect them?
They know what they're doing.
Right. How does it then affect them in their relationships with black males once they've had this interaction with a white male, or either an ongoing interaction? What is then your opinion of the effect that it has on them once they try to relate to a black male?
Well, I don't necessarily know. I didn't do that part of the research, but with black men, I stayed with the white men and the black females. I stayed with them in my research. I basically centered on them, but I didn't center too much on the black males. And but normally we just move on with our lives. We normally move on, but we do have, it could be that, in my experience, that after I had this experience, some black males have asked me, "Were you raped?"
Wow.
Because I was covering myself up. So it does have an effect on you.
Interesting.
So they have asked me, was I raped? You see what I'm saying?
That's deep.
But my research did not go too far into black male females.
Okay, let me ask Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, once this happens to a black female, what is the impact on her when she attempts to relate to a black male in any context after that? Mr. Fuller.
Well, I don't know from the black female's viewpoint, because I'm not black female. So Ms. Tate is telling what the viewpoint is from where she is looking at it. But I'm saying from the intent of the white supremacists. That's what I study. What is the white supremacists' intent in any situation that they're in? It's always to do some type of harm. That's what they do. This is their reason for breathing. Huge numbers of the white people on this planet, their entire life is about what they call life. It's really not life. It's a death. But their entire existence is all about how they can mistreat non-white people in every area of activity, not just every now and then, but 24/7. This is the essence of their being. This is their whole value system. So when it comes to the area of sex, the eighth area, after you, if you consider economics and religion and all this, they're doing it in all these areas too, but they say, how can I do some harm to this non-white person in the area of sex? Everybody, most people engage in some type of sexual activity, sexual intercourse, sexual play, and then all of the varieties of confusion now that the white supremacists are putting on non-white people all over the world in the form of what they call the new varieties of sex, or the recycling of old varieties of sex, and some things are not even sex or questionable and whatnot, but they're calling it that, and they're saying, how can I do harm? This is the whole idea. because I get fun out of this. This makes me feel like I'm doing something that's important. It's got to be done. Otherwise, do I have a culture? Because that's really what it comes down to. We're not just talking about sex here. We're talking about the entire white supremacist culture. And their culture is all about dominating and mistreating people based on color. So in the area of sex, that's all they're really thinking about. What can I do? Is there anything new that I can think of that can send the message to myself, really? Mm-hmm. That's who they're talking about. They're trying to send a message to themselves that I have done something that is harmful to this non-white person, even if the non-white person is not even aware that the harm was done.
Now,
I'd like for them to be aware of it afterwards.
Right. Now, now, Mr. Fuller,
right.
Does this same thing apply if that white male marries that black female?
Totally. Totally. Because now the deception is complete.
I'm confused. Tell me what you mean by that.
Because the person thinks that they are married. Victims of racism cannot be married to a white supremacist in the system of white supremacy. Now, the question is this person a white supremacist? So now, that's when the rubber really meets the road. Because we always say that white supremacy exists, but hardly anyone, anywhere on the planet right this minute, can find over 2 or 3 dozen white supremacists anywhere at any given time who people will say that's a white supremacist. And it's usually the white supremacist who steps forward and says, I am a white supremacist. I believe in white supremacy. Because non-white people cannot prove the existence, even, of a system of white supremacy. It takes a white person to prove the existence, which means that's proof of existence right there.
Interesting.
I hope I'm not adding to the confusion by explaining it that way, but that is really what it is. I mean, nobody can find a person. How many white people who believe in racism will stand up and say, I believe in racism? I have even run tests where, in the discussion, when a white person stands up to say something like in a seminar or something like that, I have asked the person, because the code, what I have written, requires me to do that, say, are you white? And a person who has been known to be white and who always puts down that they are white on whatever papers they fill out and all like that, have always been known as a white person. In many cases, the white person has said, well, I don't like to think of myself as white. Or they'll say, I don't really know, the purpose of this question. Yet we're talking about race. Now, the person has no problem being identified as white if the person is searching for a job. But in a seminar, in many cases, I've experienced that. I will ask the person, wait a minute, before you say anything, are you classified as white? Are you a white person? And the reason I ask that is not to embarrass or confuse the person, but there are a lot of non-white people who look like they are white. So you always want to know who you're talking to in a racial situation, because people do have classifications. And just as an aside, I just want to mention this, how these classifications keep shifting. I saw in the paper yesterday, in a newspaper yesterday, where the next census is considering dropping Negro altogether. You might punch that up on your computers and whatnot. That's what they're considering. See, at one time we only had 3 classifications. That's how it started, from what I've been told. Now we have 21. Yet people haven't changed that much. So what is this all about?
Well, it's what you and I have talked about and called the Brazilianization effect.
Yes, I've been talking about that since the early 1970s, because I've never been to Brazil, but from what I had heard, they had so many classifications that you might as well not have any classifications except white and black, really. and then shades of black, which is the conclusion that I came to, and that's the way I list them in my book. White, non-white, and white supremacists. These are the real classifications according to logic, from my point of view, if you do the logic.
All right. Stay right there. More to come. We've got a fascinating book called Pieces of a Puzzle. And, of course, we have Mr. Neely Fuller here. This is the compensatory concept. I'm Brother Kahari, sitting in every week at this time with Mr. Neely Fuller. Stay right there. More to come on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
TalkTainmentRadio.com is now more listener-friendly. We've categorized the programs that air on Talktainment Radio.
Wednesday, news, politics, and sports.
Rebranding America. The Resilience Project. Justice Matters.
Go to TalkTainmentRadio.com and click on programs for times and podcasts. Click Listen Live for current programs being aired. We are the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard.
TalkTainmentRadio.com. Food for thought.
In 2004, the National Center for Urban Solutions founded the African American Male Wellness Walk Initiative in response to a healthcare crisis in the black community. African American males were and still are dying from preventable illnesses at earlier ages and at higher rates than any other ethnic group. Planning is underway for the 9th annual African American Male Wellness Walk. This is one of several health and wellness events scheduled throughout 2013. Conversations will be held to understand the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, and the 3rd annual golf tournament is planned. For more information about these events and the African American Male Wellness Walk and Initiative, continue to listen to TalkTainmentRadio.com or call 614-754-7511.
That's another Food for Thought. To hear additional Food for Thought, stay tuned to TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard.
In 50 feet, turn left. Why are you driving so slowly?
After a few drinks, I'm taking it slow.
Well, you're not fooling the cop behind you.
What?
Get ready to pay in 0.1 miles.
Getting pulled over for buzz driving could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
What can you do with City Thank You points? You can unleash your husband's inner rock star.
Just like that.
The new City Thank You Premier Card gives you more ways to earn points. What's your story? City can help you write it.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
I'm Tammy Rager, host of The Now Age and numerologist to the stars. I've got your lucky numbers on Conversate the AM on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9:11 a.m. Make sure you tune in for your lucky number. Punch in TalkTainmentRadio.com and click on Listen Live and listen for your lucky number.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
We've got the power.
Justice is better than racism.
This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I'm Brother Kahari, sitting in every week with Mr. Fuller. Now, if you want to get this and other shows on the podcast, all you have to do is go to Talktainment Radio. Let me spell Talktainment for you. TalkTainment Radio. That's one word. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Click on programs and then look up compensatory concept, and there you are. You have what they call replays, or what is called podcasts of programs that have played before. So you'll get a chance to hear this and other programs from the compensatory concept. Joining me, of course, is Mr. Neely Fuller. Mr. Fuller is the author of 2 definitive works. Mr. Fuller, real quickly, how can we get your work?
You can get it by punching into your computer a temporary site that I have there until it's embellished later on. It's called producejustice.com. And what will come up on your screen is a brief description of both books, both the basic book and the additional word guide that came out in 2010, and how to order, because the center piece of what I'm trying to do is get the books out so that people can read the books and have a better understanding of the world that they are in.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to emphasize that this is not something detached from your everyday activities. Everything that I'm saying, which is either true or false, and you test it for that, is dominated by racism. Everything that people do is dominated by racism. If you're classified as non-white, every move that you make, regardless of what plans you have for the future or what you're doing right now or anything that has happened in your past, all of it is dominated by the minds of the people who we say are white people who believe in racism, which means mistreating people based on color.
Okay. Renethia, did I get it correct?
Yes.
Okay. Renethia Tate is here. She's written a book called Pieces of a Puzzle. Now, Miss Tate, I'd like for you to, I want to get your phone number because I wanted to get you on some other interviews. So hopefully once we're done here, you can stay on the line, and I'd like to talk to you separately. Is that okay?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Now, Mr. Fuller, in your book, The Compensatory Code, you list the 8th area of sex. Why did you set aside, and I know you've got 9 areas of life, well, maybe a better question, how powerful is the area of sex, and what does it do to people when they're confused about it? Mr. Fuller.
Well, if you confuse people sexually, you have confused them about everything. I mean, everything else is just all over the place because there's no central focus. You almost lose your reason for being, or lose who you are once you become confused about what your sexual motivations are and why. And the white supremacists understand this. Now, there are 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Now, sex is the second greatest motivating factor among the people of the planet as we speak right now. So what is the first? The first is the system of white supremacy itself. Racism and sex. That motivates people to do whatever they're doing, wherever they are. You're either engaging in something that is racial and or you're engaging in something sexual all of the time, even if you're just thinking about it. You're thinking about race or you're thinking about sex because you're required to, either directly or indirectly. Why? These are the dominating, motivating forces for the people of the planet 24/7. People are either planning on engaging in some type of sexual activity. All the songs are geared that way. The books, I think there's a book out now that's real popular. I understand. I haven't read it. I don't even understand what the content of it is very much, but I understand one of the best-selling books out right now is a book called 50 Shades of Grey, or something like that.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that?
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and it's about sex.
About sex.
Yes, you turn on your television, it's all about, whether you're looking at, regardless of what program you're looking at, it's going to be about sex. It's going to be about sex. Everything is about sex, some facet of it. And so that is a great motivating force. People get very excited about it. Even when they are not involved in it directly themselves, they are reacting to someone who is.
So when race is combined with sex, it becomes explosive. Am I correct?
It becomes a great motivating force. I mean, in other words, if a person is a racist, and then a person centers on, well, that is, a white supremacist decides that they're going to approach black people from a sexual viewpoint, they always have in mind now this domination and mistreatment. How can I best express, because they're already dominating, so how can I best express my domination through the area of sex? And when I express that domination, well, I'm always trying to confuse them, and I'm always trying to debase them. I'm always trying to have their minds just going in all kind of different directions so that nothing they do makes sense. And they enjoy that. And so they know that sex is a very powerful, motivating force. And so that's what they're always trying to experiment with. What can I do? Can I come up with some new way of confusing this person, of expressing my domination over the person? Because I'm not happy if I'm not doing that. That's the mind of a white supremacist. If they are not doing something with a non-white person sexually that's going to express their domination over that non-white person and confusing that non-white person and having that non-white person just do anything that they think that might be wind up being non-constructive, then they are not happy. They don't even want to breathe. They don't see any reason for even being here or for anybody else being here. And not only here, but any place else. It's just the mind of the way that a white supremacist thinks. This is very important. And they know how strong the motivating force of sex is. This is when they come among non-white people, one of the first things they do is start sexual confusion. And right now they're doing it all over the world by obliterating the genders among non-white people. They're saying gender doesn't matter. There's no such thing as gender. That's your imagination. There's no difference between a male and a female. There's no difference between, well, you might even say, walking on your feet and walking on your hands. It's all the same. Even though you're looking at people do something that seems to be different. People usually walk on their feet rather than their hands, but they'll say, oh, no, that's just illusion. I mean, after all, look at the hand, look at the feet. They're really the same. Doesn't make any difference. And so, therefore, when you look at the genders, there's really no difference. This gender thing is something that somebody made up a long time ago, and we got to stop that nonsense. That is the talk that the races are doing right now.
Yeah,
it's under a tribe of people.
Yeah, it's under this thing called, I think one of the things it may be under is this transhumanism thing. Yeah,
everything,
yeah.
Everything is everything, and everything is nothing.
Yeah,
that's what they're really saying. And and when you say that, what you're doing is really confusing people. See, the key word here is how can you confuse the person? Because when you confuse people ad infinitum, you can dominate them ad infinitum. If you have 10 people in a room and you have one person out of that 10 who's not confused about anything, and everybody else, the other 9, is confused about everything, you can dominate those 9 people forever.
Miss Tate, what would you say in all of this that you've done, all of your listening, all of your talking, all of your research, what would you say is the most important thing that you take away from this experience, or your what kind of knowledge did you gain? What kind of insight do you believe you've gained most importantly? What would you say?
Well, I would say that, we have examples of what they're doing to us in the bedroom. So my book gives out an example so that we can see. And, of course, I go with do not get engaged in sex with white people as long as racism, white supremacy exists. But my book lays out what will happen if we do engage. We got enough stories in there to see enough examples to see what they're doing.
Okay, now, what if people would come along and say, well, Miss Tate, this is racism. This is reverse racism. This is a racist perspective on this. What would you say to them?
Well, first, I'm not a racist. I can't be a racist. I'm a victim. First of all, I'm a victim of racism because I'm a victim of sexual abuse. What's happening is we are being abused. This is why it's a secret. This is why nobody is talking about it. It's abuse in there. So I'm a victim of that abuse. Okay? So we get a chance to learn exactly with my story and the other female story, we can see the different shades of abuse that we go through.
That's deep. Mr. Fuller, how do we stop this victimization and abuse? A lot of people use this language, but how do we counter it and turn it around and stop it in its tracks?
3 words: reveal the truth. That does more than anything. When you reveal the truth about anything, whether it's about sex or whether it's about a drive-by shooting. See, like I've said that, hey, if you want to stop all this gang banging and all like that, just reveal the truth about it. Don't hide it. I mean, in other words, if you run out here and kill somebody, everybody in the world should know it in 2 seconds or less. Everybody in the world should know who did the killing and who got killed and why. Everybody in the world. No killing should ever be a secret. And no sex between non-white people and white people, or anything that is supposed to be the new sexuality, none of this is supposed to be a secret. Revelation is what you need. Everybody tell it all. Everything that goes on between white and non-white sexually in the 8th area of activity. It should be instantly known by everybody on the planet. Every move. Everything that's going on as we speak right now.
Why? I mean, why would you go around talking about what you did in the bed? Why should you do that?
No. Only when it's what you call between white and non-white, in order to reveal how the white supremacists operate. You can't fight racism without revelation. You have to have it. You have to reveal what everybody's doing in every area of activity, and particularly sex, so that no secrets of any kind are supposed to exist between white and non-white in any area of activity, and particularly in the area of sex, which is where most of the secrets are.
Because what effect does keeping a secret have on the psyche of the individual?
Well, history has proven that information is power. The more people know the truth about anything, it's what you call intelligence. Intelligence is nothing but learning the truth about things, rather than have illusions about things, or going around guessing about things, or going about never even having thought about things. Things never came to mind because it was always hidden. But when you know the truth about anything, you'll just about know what to do, because the mind works that way. This is among even the most primitive of people.
Right.
Once you reveal to them what is really going on about anything, whether you're studying people or the workings of an automotive engine, once you know the truth about it, you can better deal with it.
Miss Tate, how can we get a copy of your work? If someone is...
My work is through Amazon.com.
Mm-hmm.
You just punch in the computer Amazon. It'll come up under Amazon.com.
And then they can order it from there?
And they can get it, yes, they can order it from Amazon, yes.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you joining us this morning with Mr. Fuller. As you know, spread the word about Mr. Fuller being here. He does a dynamite show every week. And, of course, he has the definitive works on racism, we like to say. And yes. It's very, very interesting that you have been inspired by Mr. Fuller. I've been inspired by Mr. Fuller, and many other people have been, in terms of looking at how we would examine things and take things apart and begin to challenge it at a completely different level. So I want to thank you for joining us. And Mr. Fuller, I want to thank you, as usual, for being a part of what we do here on Talktainment Radio. Thank you, sir.
And thank you for inviting me.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
You got the power.
Radio, the way it should be heard.